All right, everybody, if you're watching this, then that means hopefully you just read this sample conclusion, which is on page 10 of your essay process packet that we've been working through. So the point of this video is to recap what your notes should look like. So hopefully this helps you out. So the first sentence here, that is the one you should have identified as your reworded thesis statement, okay? When you read this example, hopefully you understood that this example was based on Harry Potter, just like the sample introduction we looked at a few weeks ago. So I want to remind you again, it's not important that it's about Harry Potter, that it's not about a raisin in the sun. The whole point is not the content of the writing here, it's how I wrote the example, so you understand how to write your own conclusion. So the first part of a good conclusion is a reworded thesis like you see here. Again, I want to emphasize and stress reworded thesis. You can do anything to reword your thesis as the first sentence of your conclusion, but it has to be reworded. You can't just copy and paste it, okay? Then you should get into a summary of your main points. So in this sample, that is everything up until this point, okay? You want to recap your paper, basically. You want to remind your readers, hey, this is what I was writing about in the first place. So if you look at your thesis to reword this sentence, the best spot to look at how to reword the rest of your main points would be your topic sentences. Okay, go back and look at the first sentence of every body paragraph and reword your topic sentences. That should be the middle part of your conclusion. The final thing you see here is the answer to the so what question. This is the most important sentence in your paper, and this example reads, these classifications are ones that relate to the reader's real world. So while she blends fantasy with reality, Rowling creates a world that reflects the real one all too well. Okay? Now, a lot of times students think the so what question is too vague. So here are two suggestions I have for you with that. Think about why any of this stuff is still important. So think about your thesis. Maybe you're writing on poverty, social class, the American dream, overcoming adversity. You could talk about why those are still important topics in today's society. That would be another more specific question to answer in the last sentence of your essay. Why is all this stuff important in the first place? You could also think of why we read A Raisin in the Sun in the first place. Spoiler alert, you're not the only high school juniors that read A Raisin in the Sun this year. Okay, thousands of high school juniors are probably reading this play across the country right now. Why is that? Why is it still important in today's world, even though it was published like over 50 years ago? That's another question you can answer. Your ultimate goal with your last sentence of your essay is to make me go, and make me think more. If I go, you make me think more, you did your job, okay? Make me think more with the last sentence of your essay. That's your goal. So that's the answer to the so what question. So if you were to recap the notes you took, you would have a reworded thesis up at the top of this triangle. You would have the summary of your main points in the middle and a so what question and the answer to that as your last sentence. Okay? So that was the conclusion you looked at, and hopefully that's what your notes show. Then you looked at these transitions in this sample paragraph. Again, if you read this paragraph and followed the directions and underlined all the transitions in that paragraph, then you would have noticed that the paragraph is not about Harry Potter, it's not about A Raisin in the Sun, it's not about anything we talked about, right? Again, that doesn't matter. The whole point is to just look at the transitions throughout this paragraph. Okay, so here's what you should have underlined. To begin, okay, you should have underlined that. That's what we call an external transition. It starts the entire paragraph, okay? That is a good transition to use to start a paragraph. The next transition you should have underlined is right here, on the other hand. On the other hand is a transition that shows contrast. It basically means however, okay? You should have also underlined when he is born. That's a time transition, okay? It shows me time has passed. You should have also underlined another example. That's a transition that adds. It's a good one. It's a simple one. It's something you could do in your essay, right? If you're writing about social injustice in A Raisin in the Sun, you could say another example of social injustice is this, okay? When the ibis dies, that's another time transition. Okay? And then you should have also underlined similarly. That's a transition that shows you're comparing things, that things are similar, duh. And then you should have at the end of the story, even at the close of the story, and to conclude. All of those things mean the same thing. It means you're wrapping up, right? But they're all said in a different manner. They all use different words. And that's the real point of this sample paragraph, is to show you what your transitions should look like within a paragraph, that you want transitions internally. If you underlined all the transitions in this paragraph, you should have 10 things underlined. I just went over them, okay? And again, they're varied, so they're different. The writer mixes things up. It's not the same thing over and over again. And it's not third grade transitions, right? We don't say first, second, last, next, finally. To help you out as you write, I put together this chart on this page too that shows you different transitions so that you can, as you're reading your first draft that you're going to put on Turn It In by our next class, if you need help, these are ideas for transitions you could add. I also want to touch on the last 2 pages. You don't have to do anything with these, so don't worry about these right now. You don't need works cited entries. You don't need to worry about the rubric yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get to the final draft, okay? So I'm going to go back to the agenda for today that hopefully you're working from right now if you're sitting in the class with the sub. And I just want to be clear one more time. You should have read independently for 10 minutes. Then you should have taken notes. Now you should be watching my video. What you're going to do next, if you're where you need to be, you should have an intro and 2 body paragraphs today. If you're not where you need to be, you get a little grace period here because I'm not here to check your body paragraphs. But if you're where you need to be, you should have an intro and 2 body paragraphs. So today you should add a conclusion to your paper. And then I want to make sure before you put anything on turnitin.com, you need to reread your entire first draft that you have from top to bottom, word by word. All right, you wrote all these paragraphs in isolation. You wrote an intro one day, then you wrote a body paragraph. Now you're writing a conclusion another day. So you got to read everything from top to bottom and make sure it makes sense, okay? That's why I call it a first draft. I don't call it a rough draft. I don't want to read rough drafts. I want to read first drafts that show some effort, all right? So just to be clear, your first full draft is due on Turn It In by our next class. For you B people, that's going to be on Tuesday. So to do this, you're going to go to Turn It In and set that up today. So you can just click on this, and then you're going to hit log in. When you get to Turn It In, you're going to hit sign in with Google. And then you're going to choose your student account, which for you guys, I hope is the only account. But if you have to choose, make sure you choose your student account. It's not loading for me here, of course. There we go. So I'm going to act like I'm a student here, and you're going to get to this page. You need to make sure you enroll in my class, okay? So today's agenda, whether you're first, second, or third hour, like this is first hour's agenda, contains a class ID you're going to need. So you're going to go to Turn It In. You can hit the plus here. You can hit enroll in a class up here. And you're going to have to enter this information. So you go have the agenda pulled up so it'll be easy. Copy and paste the class ID where it says class ID. Where it says enrollment key, that's the same for every class. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So put 1, 2, 3, 4 in and then hit submit, and then you're good to go. You'll be enrolled in my Turn It In, and you can put your paper on there as soon as you have a first draft that you feel confident in, okay? So just to be clear, first drafts are worth 20 points. It's a completion grade only. The main goal with first drafts is that you give me something that I can give you feedback on. As long as it's on Turn It In by the time our next class starts, then you're going to be good to go. I'll give you feedback. If it is not on there by that deadline, I'm not giving you feedback, and you're going to get a 0 out of 20, which would obviously hurt your grade. So make sure you use your time wisely, and you get your first draft put together by our next class. And other than that, if you have questions, please get in touch with me, email me, send me a Google Hangout. But I hope you guys have a good day. Hopefully everything goes well with the substitute and you get some work done today. Get in touch if you have questions, and I'll see you next week.